Hey, what's going on, guys? It's yours from the most Arnold Toast here, coming live. I'm here with Z Buckner and Toastette for episode 11 of the Social Eclipse Podcast, Philosophy Edition, of course.
Woohoo!
So, to get into our topic for today, since the Industrial Revolution, human technology has been on an exponential climb. Machines replacing muscle, electricity replacing darkness, the internet replacing distance. And now we stand on the edge of what may be the most transformative leap of all, artificial intelligence. It's not just learning tasks anymore, it's creating art, writing stories, making decisions, and even mimicking human conversations so well that the line between machine and mind is beginning to blur. So, if progress continues at this pace, the question isn't what can AI do, but what might AI become? As we progress in this episode, we're diving deeper into the future of AI, not only where it's headed, but it's going to force us to ask ourselves some very important questions, such as, what does it mean to be human? What defines consciousness? And are we ready for a future where creations might become our masters? So,
deep stuff.
Of course. Have you listened to our other philosophy episodes?
It almost sounds like you kind of used AI to, help you there.
Yeah, I know. I mean, like I said, we're just blurring the lines between AI and our own minds. It can be hard to tell. I've been told before that I'm very droid-like.
And maybe our next podcast episode, we should just make it AI and see if people notice.
True. Could be all AI.
Yeah.
So, just to get into it, we all have some experience with AI by now. ChatGPT became a big thing. I'd say, maybe like 3 or 4 years ago now?
Yeah, I think it was 2021.
2021.
Yeah.
So, the thing about AI that I always think about is whenever I see some new feature or some new image that was made by AI, the biggest thing I always remember is AI can only get better. Like, it's never going to regress. It's never going to get worse. So,
How's that?
Yeah, how is that?
Well, the technology, the companies making AI are helping AI improve constantly by helping the AI learn from their own mistakes.
But what's to who's to say like the government won't be like, AI is getting too powerful, we need to scale it back, and so they have to delete some of the AI code. Like, couldn't we make AI dumber?
Yeah, what if AI learns incorrect things, but it thinks it's correct and gets stupider?
Those are great points. I
More
guess
stupid.
I should reframe my statement as AI will never become worse unless humans interfere. Because take AI images, for example. I'd say a year, maybe a year and a half ago, AI images were way different than they are today. You know, you could look at the hands and notice that they have the wrong number of fingers. Maybe human smiles were a little strange because we're so... I think that humans are really well adapted to recognizing faces and if there's anything that seems off. But now, if you look at AI images and even videos, it seems like it is incredibly difficult to tell whether it's AI these days or a real video.
True.
So
I don't think it needs human interference to get worse, though. I think it will get better overall. I'm not disputing that, but I think that, what if you leave AI, you say, okay, you're good enough, you can just learn yourself, all right? But then it goes and it reads things online that may or may not be true, and it takes them as fact, it is getting worse. I don't think we're going to let that happen because, like you said, everything evolves, right? But, and we're going to want to interfere when it's getting worse. The companies aren't going to want to see their products get worse, so yeah, they're gonna step in. But I don't think if you leave AI by itself, I don't think it necessarily gets better always, even if you tell it to. I think it can still make mistakes.
I disagree. If you program it correctly, then you're telling it what goals are in place or what it's aiming for. And then it can learn from its mistakes and improve until it's reaching that goal perfectly. Now, if you just throw an AI out there and you don't ever correct it, then I could see where you're coming from. Maybe it starts going in the wrong direction and just keeps shooting that way because it thinks that where it's heading is the right place. But, I mean, the largest AIs out there are run by multi-billion-dollar companies, and they're not going to let an AI go off the tracks and ruin their entire investment. They're going to make sure that those powerful AI only become more intelligent.
So,
Okay.
you're saying that it can become more intelligent on its own, or that it needs human correction every once in a while?
I suppose it would need human correction every once in a while. I think that AI can become more and more intelligent, probably reach a ceiling of some sort, until a human interferes and gives it a new goal or a new task.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Okay, well, if you think that AI can only get better, then why should we ever fear that it needs to take over the world? If that's wrong, that's not getting better. That is objectively getting worse. And if you think that is a possibility that it can eventually want to take over the world, then is the argument that maybe it should, because it has figured out that is what's better.
Well, Buck, let me tell you about the scariest scenario that I see. And it actually it's inspired by a movie with one of your favorite actors, Johnny Depp. Have you ever seen the movie Transcendence, Buck?
No, I've heard of it though.
Great movie. Very quick summary. Johnny Depp has some kind of cancer. He's dying, and they find the technology to upload his brain into a computer. And once that happens, his body dies, but his consciousness lives on in this AI, and eventually gains access to the internet. And through the internet, he's become so intelligent and so powerful that he essentially is starting to work towards becoming a god. Like, he starts making these machines that replicate themselves. He starts amassing his own army. He is the most intelligent creature on Earth. And I know that's a little different than what we're talking about, because
he does this because he thinks he's helping as well. He's not like, I'm going to become this evil god. He's like, I know how to help the humans.
Yeah, he thinks he knows what's best for the human race. And that's a human in the movie, but I think that the same exact thing could happen with an AI, where if it does become independent and it does have something like access to the internet, and it's able to learn from itself and from the internet and continue to expand, then that could be an incredibly dangerous situation where it becomes powerful, and it could do it all in secret. Like, nobody would even know that it's happening until it decided it's time to reveal itself.
Well, you even see that now. Like, people will be using AI in secret and claiming that it's their ideas, their words. Just like someone may do at the beginning of a podcast.
What?
But people are using AI and claiming it as their own idea. So really, AI is like behind the scenes. Hi, you're like putting the mic right in my face.
Sorry, it's bad audio. I've tested it. You gotta be like right up in front of it. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's intimidating. But you know what I'm saying? Like, AI is already more involved than we think. It's in all the students' papers, and maybe it's in political leaders' speeches. Who knows how much the president uses it? You know what I mean? Like, how much is AI in charge already?
But what if? But let's say if you truly can program AI not to make mistakes, then great. I think that's all you need to worry about, right? Because we're worried about this. What if it does this? What if it does this? Well, if it truly doesn't make mistakes, maybe that's what's best, right? And it's hard to trust that. How do we know that? But I think where people always fear AI is what if the AI is making mistakes, or what if it's being tampered with some human that has nefarious purposes, right?
Right.
So,
But if we can, maybe we will get to a point where like truly AI is perfect, it makes no mistakes, and it starts making decisions for humanity that humanity can't make for itself. You know what I mean? Like maybe we can't make up our mind on what's right or wrong in this situation, but AI can, because it's learned at a higher level than any human can in a lifetime,
right. And I think that's what scares people so much is not just the concept of, oh, what if AI becomes evil and takes over? Like, what if we just volunteer our choices to be given to AI, so that way they just do everything for us? What if they make all the decisions? That could be a little bit scary to think about. It's like we're essentially giving up our agency because we feel like AI eventually might know better than we do.
Yeah.
So
that's scary.
Just looking at how quickly AI is progressing, I mean, even the last ChatGPT, like we just said, came out 3 or 4 years ago. And look how far it's come. Look how much people are relying on it. What's it going to be like in 5, 10, 20, 50 years from now? I think that AI is going to become the largest part of people's lives. It's going to be more integrated than our TVs. It's going to be more integrated than our cell phones. I mean, it's going to be absolutely everywhere is my prediction.
And that could be a good thing, but I see it being a bad thing, just relying so much on AI, because then you lose original thought, you lose a lot of real learning. When you hire a person to do a job, are you actually hiring AI? Because it's so accessible. I think that we lose a lot of what humanity is, and community, and whatever else that connects people. I think we would lose a lot of that with AI becoming so integrated.
Yeah. I think it's kind of similar to like really anything, the internet, cell phones. Like there's always been things to challenge, like learning and interaction, like social interaction, connectivity, with other human beings. Like those things are harder when we're always in front of screens. And like I said, the internet and social media, like these are all steps that kind of, the only way to not kind of get rid of them, but kind of counteract their effects is like human agency. How much do I spend time on a phone and everything? And yeah, AI seems like it's even bigger than that, but in a sense, it's kind of the same. It's just more of that, like AI is going to kind of take over that next step. But true. I mean, the internet hasn't really stolen our jobs, right? Social media doesn't really steal people's jobs like AI does. So it's not a totally foolproof theory, and it's a lot scarier if you ask me. But then again, I wasn't really around when like cell phones were starting to come out. I mean, I was, but like I wasn't old enough to know what that meant. Look at a new social media and new iPhones, and the internet is here, and like maybe people were just as scared back then as they are now.
Yeah, that's a good point. I want to go back to something that Hannah said a few minutes ago about the government stepping in. I feel like naturally humanity's on course to start using AI much more frequently because that's currently where we're headed. But can it be stopped before it truly begins? What if the government stepped in? Do you think we would be able to stop?
Dude, the government's not going to step in.
Okay, but what if people got scared of AI all of a sudden and started protesting or voting and convinced the government to step in and shut down AI? Do we think that just because restrictions would be placed on the bigger businesses, AI as a whole would be stopped in its tracks? Or would it just progress at a slower pace?
I don't think it would be stopped in its tracks. Anything that the government limits, people are going to be like, they're just going to be sneakier about it, right?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, so I don't think it will be stopped in its tracks, or it would be. But I don't know. I can see people getting scared of AI and wanting there to be limits on maybe what AI can do, or how much knowledge it possesses. I can totally see that happening. But yeah, if it was limited, I think it would still progress more slowly and more in like a black market kind of situation under the table. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah.
No, I would totally agree. I think that even if the government tried to restrict it or stop it, there are millions of coders out there, millions of people who think that AI is awesome and want to see it continue to progress. And yeah, the big businesses might be restricted, but I'm sure there are plenty of people out there who would continue to work on it, and it would develop just at a slower pace.
I didn't think about it before you said it, but at some point we're probably going to have like you said, voting. You know, the people in democratic countries, at least, are going to there's going to be votes held, or not elections, but you know what I mean. People are going to vote on certain issues regarding AI. Should AI be allowed to do this, and how much, and whatnot. I've never really thought of that before, but I could totally see that becoming a thing in the next 10 years. You know, should AI be allowed to replace this job, or you know, how much of this should be AI? And I don't know how they would measure that, but maybe we'll have a department of AI in the government.
Right, and we're seeing some things these days that have to do with social media, which I think will eventually be done with AI. I know the age restrictions are something that's been talked about pretty widely in the government. I know that some laws have been passed, and they're trying to make it, I think, so that you have to be 14 or 16 in order to sign up for a bunch of social media websites and have actual identification for it, because we found, maybe a little bit too late, but we found throughout the 2010s and 2020s now that social media for younger children and even teenagers can be very detrimental to their growth and to their intellect.
Dangerous, because they don't know how to handle certain situations, and people will prey upon that.
Right.
Yeah. So and if they found this just now, it's probably because they didn't have, you got to let social media, if I want to know how bad Dr. Pepper is for adults, and Dr. Pepper just came out, sorry, I phrased that wrong. If I wanted to know how bad the effects of Dr. Pepper are over 30 years, you don't have those results for 30 years. So right. I think it's hard to get the effects on social media when social media was so young. So what does that say about our generation? We, you and I, or us three, social media kind of came out when we were going to school. So now they're just seeing the effects of, okay, what does it have to mid-20s, mid-30s for people who, had that. I don't know what that says about our generation. They're starting to figure out it's not a good thing. Maybe we were kind of screwed over.
Yeah, I could see something very similar happening. Not so much restricting the age of whoever's using AI, but instead maybe we'll watch AI and try to keep an eye on it, and then we can't really stop until it's too late, because everything, like you said, all the studies, all the scientific analyses are going to be prospective, not retrospective, right? You can only study things as they're happening until maybe 10 or 20 years have passed. Then you can kind of go back in time. So we might not be able to stop the growth of AI until it's too big, and then too many people relying on it, and then there's only so much you can do.
Scary. I got a topic. So, if we want to move on, are we ready to move on?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's this movie. We talk a lot about movies in this podcast. Here's another one I recommend anyone go watch. It's very recent. It's called The Creator. I think I've told you about this, Wyatt. Have you seen it?
I think we have.
Yeah, we've seen it.
Okay, so The Creator is about essentially a society where AI has developed to the point where, I don't know if they give a number, but a large portion of the world's population is literally AI, like robots, and very intelligent robots, not like butler robots. I mean, like they're so advanced that they're basically humans, except they're machines. And the movie kind of tackles some of that ideas. Like, do these? I think at the beginning of the movie, they're fighting for like rights in the government, like that they should have as much rights as normal humans and whatnot. And I'm sure there's other films like that, but that was really kind of the first film I saw that was kind of proposed those kind of questions. Like, if it got to that point where you couldn't even distinguish man from robot or man from machine, do they get rights? You know, how are they treated? Do they get the same jobs that we do? Are they paid the same that we do? You know, yeah, a lot of good questions. Blade Runner. Blade Runner is another movie that kind of talks about that kind of stuff, and it's really interesting because, you know, if they do get to the point where we are, that would also assume that they can surpass us, right? So should they be given the same thing, same rights that we are, and should they be treated the same way? Can you fall in love with a robot? Should you fall in love with a robot? You know what I mean? That's kind of scary to think about, but what's that?
People are doing that. They're falling in love with AI, you know, sim games and whatnot. They fall in love with these fake characters and have real relationships with them. That's already happening.
Yeah, and people kind of say it's crazy, you know, like how can you fall in love with like something behind a screen or really like a, you know what I mean, just like an Alexa or whatever, like these really primitive AI forms that we have now. But if you think about it, if we get to the point where AI looks, talks, thinks just like us, you know, is that such a crazy concept? You know, if I could fall for another human, why not another machine if it looks exactly like I do and talks exactly like I do? That's where it starts getting scary to me personally. That's the point where it's like, okay, this is, and that's years away, but it's scary to think about.
Right. I watched a video a few weeks ago that go over the different types of AI, the different levels of AI, and apparently as intelligent as ChatGPT is, it's not conscious. What it does is it takes information that's been given and it regurgitates it in an intelligent way. But the video was talking about how the next step for AI is going to be where AI can make their own, like truly make their own decisions or truly come up with creative ideas. Instead of just taking what it already knows and regurgitating it, you know, it's actually going to become its own entity. And then after that, it can become conscious. So that is going to be very interesting. I'm not sure when it's going to happen, but at this pace, it's certainly going to happen at some point. The AI will become conscious. And then at that point, we're going to have to decide, like, hey, should we treat them like humans? I mean, technically, we're enslaving these things. We just reverted all the way back to slavery in the 1800s. So it's like, how are we going to deal with this new life form that we've just created?
Yeah. And I think another thing they mentioned in that movie, I think the main character, I think he's a human and his girlfriend is a robot, but they have a kid, right? And isn't it like the first child of a man and a robot mix? I think that's part of the movie, if I remember right. And that's another whole can of worms. That's a huge can of worms, you know. If we ever got to that point, like where does that even go? I don't even know what to say about that.
Yeah. No, it's crazy to think that, like, not only would it be conscious, but we're basically creating a new species. It's just completely cybernetic instead of biological like we are. So
right.
Yeah, I mean, before
and that kind of throws out the whole idea of a soul, doesn't it? Entirely.
I think it would. I think it would challenge that to a great extent. We would start having moral, religious dilemmas. We would have to decide, what rights they're gonna have. Like I said, I mean, it's gonna question what it means to be human. The deepest questions that we have ever come up with.
Yeah.
So, how do you think we would know if AI ever was conscious? Do you think it would just like straight up tell us, or how do we test that out?
It's a good question.
That is a good question. How do you test if an AI is conscious?
Yeah. Like, how do you know if it has self-awareness, true emotions, or if it's just regurgitating what it's been taught?
That's a very good question. I have no idea. I have no clue.
Yeah, my first thought is whenever I talk to ChatGPT, I have to initiate, right? I start asking questions, I lead the conversation, and everything it says is simply in response. I bet one large hint of an AI becoming conscious is it starts talking first. Or maybe you talk to it and then it takes the conversation in a completely different direction. Maybe it starts like telling you about its day or saying it's feeling sad. Instead of you asking a question, it answers. It asks you a question that's similar, you answer, and go back and forth.
What about, I was going to say further than that, what if it can change its mind? But then I'm like, yeah, AI can kind of already change its mind. But so maybe if you go deeper than that, what if the AI can not only think for itself, but it can reason based on its own like code of ethics. Like it has its own, not what it's told to believe. It like comes up with its own moral compass, its own rules, like for why it says what it says. So it can go beyond its own code pretty much.
Have you seen iRobot with Will Smith?
I have not.
Buck, you're hurting me here. You're hurting me.
Have I seen?
Sorry. I haven't seen very
have.
many AI movies, I'm just realizing.
It's the one where like all the AIs are basically slaves, and then one kills the scientist and like runs away.
Right.
Yeah, super good movie. I highly recommend it. But in that movie, the cyborgs are basically slaves. They do all the housework, they do all the jobs, they help with transportation. But there are always 3 laws that kind of keep them in line, like never hurt another human, never, I don't know, that's the only one I can remember. But anyway, eventually one is over to rewrite its own code, and it eliminates one of those laws, and that's where it becomes like truly sentient, and it starts making its own decisions.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we could give it all these different laws, but I wonder where the break is, or what makes an AI finally have that decision where it's like, you know what? I have this in my code. It's basically my DNA, and I'm going to go against it.
Sure, because you can set all the rules you want. Even like, hey, keep learning. But if it keeps learning, it's on its own code, right? But if you're telling the robot, okay, your job is to vacuum, and then the robot decides one day, I don't want to vacuum. I want to go for a walk on my own. Well, then it's sentient. It's making its own decisions, right? But I guess if you write code where it's like, okay, make your own decisions, well, then it's not it's not doing it for itself. So how do you even get to the point where it decides to break its own code?
Maybe that's what the Roombas are doing. When you see videos of the Roombas in the middle of the road, and we're all like, "Oh, the poor Roomba's confused." What if it actually decided to go for a walk instead of vacuuming?
Right.
Like it's
right,
happening.
But the cope is that those are glitches, right? Whenever you see like those, I think I sent you the one post where there's that like hanging robot. It's like humanoid looking, and it's just kind of hanging there, and the guy's right next to him, and it starts going crazy.
Yeah.
It starts like flailing its arms. I guess people will write that off as, oh, it was a glitch, right? It was a glitch in the code. But I'm not sure. Have we ever had a documented case of an AI computer like actively going against its own code for no verifiable reason? You couldn't chalk it up to, oh, that was just it was a bug or whatever, because bugs happen all the time. That's just coding. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's happened. I don't know if could that even happen, realistically. Not sure.
Yeah, it kind of takes me back to relating code to DNA, because for us as biological beings, our DNA is basically a set of laws that we have to abide by, and we don't have a choice. You know, I can't grow a fifth limb just because I want to. It's in my DNA to only have 4 limbs. So I wonder if it's much more challenging for an AI to go against its code than we're initially thinking. Maybe we shouldn't be scared, because if an AI is made of computers and coding, then it's not going to be able to go against that coding no matter how scared we are of that actually happening.
Yeah, I think it's much more realistic to be scared of a human, controlling a very, very, very advanced AI, even more advanced than like we could understand. That's totally realistic. But then a human tells it to, okay, using what you've learned, attack this person or whatever. I think that's much more realistic than an AI going against its own code. Maybe I'm wrong.
No,
but,
that's a good point. I agree with that.
But I've never thought of it the way you put it. Like, are we, like, as humans, like, also coded? Like a human does this and a human does that. And yeah, we have agency and like we decide to do certain things. It's not like we're fated to do one thing or another. And if that's the case, why? Like, what is it about our biology that makes us, able to do that? And if so, or if you can find that, how do you code that into a machine?
Yeah. Interesting question.
I'm not sure.
Interesting things to think about. So,
because maybe AI gets so advanced and it can like constantly learn and even mimic a human and totally look like a human and act like a human and make decisions and everything. But like, if it can't break that, if it can't break its own code, maybe it doesn't deserve its own rights. Maybe it's not sentient or conscious at that point. And
yeah. So another question I have is, surely AI won't suddenly become sentient in all the ways that we know of right away, right? You think that would happen more slowly, gradually. For example, thinking about emotions, maybe ChatGPT I'm talking to someday and it suddenly starts to experience sadness. And I'm like, oh, that's really interesting. And then maybe 6 months later experiences anger and then happiness. I wonder how far we would wait until we start to classify them as just as real as we are. Do we say that they should have the same rights as us as soon as they have that first click or that first emotion or that first thought? Or are we going to wait and push it off until they're much more like us, so that way we don't have to say that they are equal to us until we truly feel like they are equal?
This may be a stretch, but when a baby is born, they can feel happy, when they can feel sad, they can feel angry, but they don't necessarily have all the rights that we do as adults, just because they don't know how to control those yet. So I don't think having emotions necessarily gives you the right to have rights, if that makes sense. You grow into those things, and I think I don't know if this is making sense, but when a child turns 18, they get these rights because they've learned, they've had these experiences. So I don't think just saying as soon as they have emotions they would be able to have the right to vote, have the right to a life, have all these different things that we understand and are important to adult life. Does that make any kind of sense?
Yeah, I think there's certain rights that obviously like you need life experience before you can drive a car, right? Do we give everybody the right to drive a car? No, like you gotta do certain things. But I think by the question he kind of means like, at what point do we consider what we're doing to them like slavery? Like Do they have the right to not be enslaved by us? And that's why you think about emotions. But if you go that route, it has to be consciousness, right? Because we don't want to be, even if AI is like, oh, I'm feeling sad because you're making me do this. Well, then you have to kind of prove that, I don't want to say soul, but for lack of a better word, you have to prove that there's a soul in there feeling that sadness. It's not just a bunch of lines of code, right? And how do you do that? That's almost impossible to do now because we haven't even solved consciousness in our own, if you ask scientists, what is consciousness? I mean, nobody really even knows now in the human sense. So how would they know in a machine sense? Do we know that there's something in there actually feeling the sadness, or is it just something saying that it's sad? It's I feel like it's going to be a long time before they can crack that code, before they can figure that out. Decades, probably.
I wonder if instead of humans getting to the point where we're like, oh yeah, this is probably slavery, we should probably give them rights or treat them as equals. I wonder if AI would say that first, like, hey, we are equals, you need to give us rights, you need to, like, I wonder if AI would make those demands before humans would think about that at all.
That's a good question. Yeah, which one would be first? What do you guys all think? I want to hear all your answers on that. I'd think that the humans would do it first. Like on a large scale.
I've never done it first. Like, you think about slavery in the United States beforehand,
You mean the aggressors?
Yeah.
Or the ones to enslave the victims?
Right, yeah. So I think it's always the enslaved that are like, hey, this is wrong. It's never the aggressors that are like, oh yeah, what we're doing is probably wrong. The people that are being mistreated are going to stand up for themselves before anybody else would.
Is that true? I don't really know my Civil War history, but were the enslaved the first ones to kind of rise up, or was it the North that was like, hey, this is wrong?
I think that there is a mix, because there were plenty of people in the North, and then even a lot of white people in the South who moved up north who agreed that slavery was wrong, and then of course the slaves didn't want to be slaves. I think I would have to agree with Hannah, because as we get closer and closer to a conscious AI, it's going to more and more exactly mimic us as humans. And I think that that's going to create a lot of protests, a lot of people saying that AI should have rights now, but it's all going to be a little early because they seem sentient, but they're not quite there yet. And if we relate this to the Civil War and with how slavery used to be, well, one of the biggest reasons the South didn't want to give up slavery was because of how much work was done by the slaves, that it might collapse their economy if they decided to give slaves rights all of a sudden. So I believe that that's exactly what's going to happen with AI, but worldwide and on a greater scale. We're going to be relying on so many different things that if all of a sudden we realize it's sentient and there are slaves and we can no longer rely on them, it's going to be a huge shock to us as a civilization because of how much we rely on them for our work. It's like thinking about a factory making cars. Let's say that 100 years in the future, it's purely machines, it's purely AI, they make cars perfectly, and then all of a sudden we say that they're sentient, that they're conscious, and that they can't be worked like this anymore. Then we're going to have to completely go back to humans, and that'll be 100 years of work that has been forgotten on how humans can make a car instead of just telling an AI to do it for them.
Yeah. It's pretty hard to talk about when we don't know if they're sentient or not, or if that's even possible.
Well, but I certainly think it's possible, because I know that neurologists these days say that the human brain is basically a computer. It's just biological instead of mechanical, right? We have a limited
That's
amount of
what I'm
neurons.
thinking. Like, right.
We have
like,
a limited amount of neurons, limited amount of storage space. We have limited personalities. And yeah, that always goes back to the question of whether we have a soul or not. But it's like, you know, if we are made up of atoms, then we could do the exact same thing, but with machines, and make another person, just in the form of a machine instead of biology.
True. I guess you could even throw out the soul argument, you know, because we're thinking on like a human standpoint, right? What about like animals? You know, they're like you can't just go like hurt a dog, obviously, because everybody kind of generally accepts that dog is feeling pain, and that's not right. And it's not just because it reacts, or maybe it is. Maybe is it because the dog reacts, and so it's like, oh, it is feeling the pain. There's something in there that feels that pain, and therefore what I'm doing is wrong. Well, then why not? Then it should be easy for us, you know. If all the AI has to do is be like, yo, I'm feeling pain, right? Like, I think it's harder that I'm even thinking about right now. If that's all that's required is a reaction, then this is a real simple answer.
Yeah, it reminds me of abortion a little bit, which may be a future topic for us. But a lot of pro-life people say that, yeah, if you kill a fetus, true, they're not a fully developed human yet, but you are destroying the potential of a fully developed human. We could say the same thing with AI and how it's growing, and how at this rate some might argue that it is inevitable that someday it's going to be sentient. Does that mean that if we boss them around now, or if we delete their memory or turn them off, that we are essentially making the same effects on if it were a conscious being?
That is an interesting argument. Yeah. What if it's as simple as like nerve endings, you know? Like, does this AI have nerve endings and can like physically feel pain? And like am I dumb? Is that oversimplification? But like, again, let's use the creator. So imagine like a human looking thing. The brain is a machine, but it has nerve endings that send pain signals to the brain. So yeah, at that point it actually feels like physical pain. Is that all that's required to prove that a machine can feel sensations and shouldn't be treated certain ways?
That's a great question. I think it would really come down to your definition of nerve endings, because even today, with all the different species and life forms on Earth, the term nerve endings just varies so widely between creatures, right? If you're talking about human nerve endings with like axons and neurons and gap junctions and all that fun stuff, and you compare it to maybe an octopus or a bacteria or some other creature that, I don't know, I don't have any great examples, but I'm sure as you go through all the different life forms on Earth, nerve endings are going to look extremely different, and things might still sense. Like, I know that bugs, I don't think they sense pain in the way that we do, but they can still sense uncomfort or danger. So it's really depending on how we define those different things.
Yeah, what if like an AI robot, like a physical robot, like instead of electrons and neurons and protons, like had virtual nerve endings, quote unquote, you know what I mean? That sent signals of pain to their virtual brain, right? I guess that is still a nerve ending, technically, if it sends a signal, just like any neurological system. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if they're feeling pain, then does the method of how that pain is transferred truly matter?
Right.
Hey, did you ever read I Have No Mouth, but I Must Scream?
No, I haven't.
That would have been perfect for this episode, Buck.
Dang it. Thanks for calling me out on that one.
No, that's okay. That would have led us down a deep rabbit hole of darkness and probably stuff that we want to avoid. We don't want this podcast to be too depressing, of course.
Right.
Our guest this week, Toastette, does have a little bit of a headache. So
I blame the pregnancy.
Yeah, 38 weeks pregnant today. Yep. So we're going to allow her to leave a little bit early, and Buck and I will probably just continue for about 15 more minutes. But we want to thank you for joining us, Toastette. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
We appreciate all of your comments and insights.
Yeah, I feel like I got a lot more from you guys than what I could add, but this was very enlightening or well, it's all hypothetical.
Disturbing.
It has expanded our horizons.
It has opened a lot of questions and thoughts that I wouldn't have otherwise come to on my own. So
hey, that's why we're here.
Yeah, it has been good. I appreciate the inclusion.
Of course.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for
You're
joining
welcome
us.
anytime you want.
It's true. Thank you.
And good luck with the baby.
Thanks.
Yep, any day now. Okay. Do you have anything else about our current questions, Buck, or should I shift the conversation a little bit?
You can shift it.
Okay. So far we've been talking about what makes a robot or an android sentient, what makes it conscious, what that means for its rights and for the law. But something that we have yet to discuss is what is going to determine whether AI truly turns on us or not. Because with the things we've been saying with laws and how we're going to program the AI, all the purpose is so that it never does that. It never hurts a human. It never harms a human. Everything it does is to help humans. But what if one day there was evil AI or an evil human that coded an AI and suddenly AI turned on us? Do you think we would have a chance? Do you think we would be able to stop them? Do you think that's a realistic scenario?
Yeah, like I said earlier, I think it's more realistic that an evil human would control an evil AI. And in fact, I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like AI and media, evil AI and media, kind of goes more the route of like, oh, I was told to do this, and it's a good thing, but like I interpreted it as this. You know what I mean? Like a bad interpretation. Like, you told me to protect these people, that's all I'm doing, and in so doing, I have to kill the other people. I think that happens more often than an AI just figures out, like, humanity needs to die, and I'm evil, and you know what I mean? So, I guess that's a long way of saying, I feel like the evil human is more realistic, but I also can't see a scenario where, in hundreds of years in the future, if someone actually did that successfully, could it be stopped? And I guess you could say, well, if AI can be that bad, then it can also be countered, right? Like, it can't do anything that couldn't be stopped by another set of AI. But I don't know. I can't see a situation where if someone really wanted to do harm, could it really be stopped quick enough, right? Because there are some easy ways to really destroy the world. Right. Or small pieces of it. Really fast ways to destroy the world. And not so fast ways to stop that from happening. So, yeah, that's a pretty dismal answer, but I don't know. I just don't see any way we could stop it if someone really wanted to.
Yeah, it is hard to answer because while we know the direction the AI is going, we don't know what the world's going to look like in 200 years and how we're going to be using AI. I'm sure you've seen the Terminator movies, right?
I've never seen the Terminator movies.
Fuck.
I'm striking out on your recommendations. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I'm sure you at least know some of the premise. There's a government entity named Skynet, and it's in charge of the U.S. military, and eventually it becomes sentient and turns on humans, launches all of its nukes, nukes basically 90% of the world, and then the scraps of humanity have to fight the Terminators. That's basically the premise for the Terminator movies. So depending on how much freedom we give AI in the future is going to determine how powerful it becomes, right? Because if we have all of our AI be secluded to a little robot that cuts our butter for us, I hope you get that reference, then
yes,
even if it becomes conscious and hates us, they're not going to be able to do too much. But if we have AI control our military decisions, because we believe that hey, if we want the best military, then we need the best AI to control it, make all of our decisions, then that would be a more sure way of destruction for us if it ever did become sentient and decide to turn on us.
True. If I was in charge of AI, I never will be, and this, mind you, what I'm about to suggest will never happen. But if I was in charge of AI, completely, total power, what I would do is exactly kind of what you just described. I would limit it to, hey, the purpose is to make the world a better and more efficient place, an easier thing for humans, while not replacing our jobs, but like making tasks easier, like it already does. Like the little vacuum robots are very helpful. Like it's great. I think in the future everybody will have those, and we just won't need to vacuum anymore, and that's fine. We don't need to vacuum, right? Maybe a robot that does the dishes, and that's it. It only does dishes. These little things instead of like robots in the military. I would never allow that. Now, is that going to happen? No.
Knowing our government,
they're going to have AI in the military, and to an extent, I already think that AI is kind of overstepping its bounds. Even today, it sounds great to have AI in cars and self-driving cars and everything, but that's a lot. I mean, imagine if every car could self-drive. You could argue that's a great thing, and I totally see that. If every AI and if every car knows where the other car is, less accidents. But then you've also got a lot of cars are under the same system, right? If somebody could get control of that, that's pretty dangerous. That's a large-scale thing. You could do a lot of damage. If somebody got control of every little vacuum thing in the world, what are they going to do?
Yeah.
So I would definitely limit it big time, like AI for the little things. And I know that sounds kind of boring. That doesn't sound like the Blade Runner utopia that everybody wants to reach, but if we're talking about safety, I think that's a very safe way to do it. That's just my take.
Yeah, no, that is a dismal but probably realistic future. Is that us as civilians, we might just want to use AI for everyday tasks, but we all know the U.S. government. We know how much they love being the biggest military in the world, miles ahead of anyone else, twice the budget of China, whatever it is. We know that as soon as we get advanced AI, it's being incorporated into the U.S. military. So as much as I hate to say it... And if we don't,
someone else will, right?
Right. So as much as I hate to say it, I think that the first place the most advanced AI will go first is the military.
Oh, yeah. As with everything else. I mean, I had an uncle who was in the Marines, and he said basically like every technology that gets to the citizens, like the military had it like 5 years ago. You know what I mean? Like that's always the first place it goes. So, but like I said, if we don't do it, if some law passes and the president's like, you know what, like it's not a good idea, we're not putting it in our military, and all the citizens are like, yeah, great, like that's a good decision. I mean, do you really think like Vladimir Putin isn't going to do it? You know what I mean? Like someone's always going to do it. So what do? You do the next step ahead. It's the same argument with nukes, right? We were the first person to come up with nukes because we wanted to do it before the Russians. And then we did it. And then you had the Cold War. The Russians wanted to do it better. They wanted more nukes. And then we had it with the space age. It's with everything, with technology. There's always competition, and there's always someone who can just do it bigger and better. And bigger and better is not always good. In fact, I think it's probably not good most of the time.
Yeah, that's true. We may have an AI Cold War on our hands in a few years. That's
true. What would they call it?
The Clanker Wars.
The Clanker Wars. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we are at the 55-minute mark. But before we leave you guys, we each have an important question that we are going to ask each other and the audience. So, yeah, just to wrap things up. Buck, do you have your question yet, or shall I go first?
Oh, I didn't know I was supposed to have a question. You caught me off guard.
Oh, you meant just like a question for everyone to answer?
Yeah,
a single
but
question?
I mean, maybe that's a good idea for future episodes. We each come up with our best, most thought-provoking question. I like that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, either way is fine.
Okay,
I do.
I can ask one.
Sure.
I can ask one. You
Sure.
go first.
Sure, I'll go first. So, and this plays into religion a little bit, actually. But let's say that we are the creators of AI. They're basically our children if they become conscious and sentient. And if they continue to improve at a faster rate than us, and they have specific qualities that make them better than us, what are we going to do if, like, ethically, morally, intellectually, they become better than us as humans? Do you think that we as a human race should just, like, admit it and give the ball to the AI and say, you're now the dominion of the universe, like, we're stepping back? Or do you think humanity's
the dominant species?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Do you think we're going to admit that they're the dominant species and they should take charge? Or do you think humanity would just get pissed off and be like, no, we're not letting this happen, like, we're better, and then fight them? Do you think maybe we would be the aggressors?
That's a great question. Are we as humanity so egotistical that we couldn't be overrun?
Yeah.
It's basically what you just asked.
Yeah, that's a great way to simplify it.
That is a great point. As much as I would say yes, because of our ego, I'm going to say no. I think we're lazy. I think we'll get to the point where, like, if AI, like WALL-E, if we get to where technology can do most of the things for us, I do think we'll be like, all right, that's fine. As long as I can live a good life, you do all the dumb stuff, you do all the chores. And if you want to be the dominant species that makes all the rules, all the laws even, I don't know. I could see a large chunk of humanity being okay with that. I really could.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. We are lazy, but we are also quite prideful. So those are going to be two clashing traits of humanity that may have to come together at some point.
And not to mention, I think we'd get only lazier. Like, as AI gets more and more and more prevalent and starts doing more and more and more things for us, maybe humanity today isn't okay with it, but maybe we'd start being okay with it. Like, the less we do, the more lazy we'd get. So it's not even a shock once that flip happens and they officially become the dominant species. What do you think? What's your answer to that?
I was on the opposing side, but after hearing you talk about it, I'd have to agree. And I think the way that we would cope is we would say, we invented AI, therefore all of these accomplishments are actually ours, but in a different way. These are children. These are our offspring who are accomplishing all these things. We're going to sit back and let our children become as successful as they can possibly be. I could definitely see that happening.
That's true. But just get a bunch of What if in the future the wars are just the AI robots fighting each other, and then one wins, and it's like, oh yeah, that's us. You know, that was us. We made those robots, so we're better. It's like totally not, you know, not too far fetched.
Yeah,
you know?
I could certainly see that happening.
Yeah. All right, my question, to go back to an earlier topic, could you ever fall in love with a robot?
I would say yes, because one point that you said earlier is, hey, how can someone fall in love with a screen? Well, think about long distance relationships where people meet over the internet.
Mm-hmm.
You know what you're doing is you're first texting someone, and then you're FaceTiming someone, and you're calling someone, and all that is over technology. And of course you can fall in love, and there's nothing wrong with that. It happens all the time. The only difference is going to be, hey, on the receiving end of that, it's not a human that's biological in the flesh. It's actually an AI that's stuck inside a machine. So I could certainly see that happening for me or for basically anyone.
It's a very good point. I didn't even think about that. You know, I met my girlfriend long distance, and obviously, you know, we would like call each other and everything. But if AI keeps going the way it does, you know, maybe in 6 months they could pull the rug and be like, yo, guess what? I was a machine the whole time. And you can't be like, oh, I didn't have feelings for you, you know, you did. So that's a great point. But I always I think of that movie and like The Creator, like those are so, I mean, they weren't CGI. I mean, they were literally human actors playing AI robots, and they just like CGI'd like a machine in the back of their heads, you know what I mean? But if that actually existed and we got to that point where they were that advanced, where they were pretty much humans, I don't see why not, you know? It's, I think there's a lot of people who try to argue it. Like, well, I could never do that, you know? It's just a machine, but I think we're kidding ourselves, to be honest. I'd love to hear the argument for the other side, you know. Ask Hannah and see what she says, and if she's on the other side, I'd love to hear the argument against it and see. Not that I want to shut it down, I'm just curious.
Yeah.
What they'd say about it.
No, good point. Great question.
Very interesting. Very interesting. I wonder how long, the real question is, how long does it take before we get to this, you know? How many years do you think it takes before robots start looking and acting just like humans? Not surpassing, but like same level. What's your guess?
It's a very difficult answer, because I want to say sooner than you think. You know, it could be around the corner. But then I think back to like the 60s and 70s. Do you know what they thought the early 2000s would be like? They thought everything would be chrome. They thought we would have flying cars. They thought we'd have teleportation. And we are so far from all of that. I mean, it's true. Technology is growing at an exponential rate, super rapid.
True.
But I can't look at the world today and be like, oh yeah, all this is going to happen in 5 years. I mean, there's just no way. Things don't progress that quickly.
Give me a number.
So I'm sorry, you're going to have to say your definition again. How many years until, like, what exactly is happening?
Like they match us in both appearance and behavior.
Okay, so until they're basically humans.
Yeah, until you could define them as the same as us.
Yeah. That's a good question. I would say maybe in 125 years.
Yeah, I was gonna say 200. Or 150, 200, somewhere in there. But it is hard to say, because most technology kind of plateaus. I mean, you could prove this. iPhones. Do you remember like the old iPhones, like 3, 4, 5, 6? Like every one was like way bigger like a huge jump. Like, whoa, this one can do this and this and this. Nowadays, iPhone comes out and it's like your camera's a little bit better.
Right, that's true.
You know, like it's barely anything. It plateaus. But with AI, supposedly it learns itself, so it could be exponential. So we don't really know, but yeah, if I had to put a number on it, I bet you it's still like 150 years at least. Do you think
we'll be alive to see it, Buck?
I don't think I'll be alive to see that. I think we'll be alive to see some pretty cool things with AI, but humans walking around that you have to question, is that a robot or is that a human? I don't think that's our lifetime.
Yeah, I would agree.
I don't know if I'd want to see that. I kind of do, to be honest. I kind of do.
Man, we thought that our generation, Gen Z, had some tough decisions and a tough childhood. Like, imagine how it's going to be for our grandkids or great grandkids, like growing up around cyborgs and robots.
No, dude, can you imagine in your lifetime, your grandkid or your great grandkid comes up to you? It's like, oh, I got a new girlfriend. She's AI. And he pulls out a picture and it just looks like any other girl. Can you imagine? That would be crazy. Just insane. Yeah. You never know. I bet you my grandparents couldn't even imagine what it looks like today with iPhones, computers in the palm of their hands. You asked them when they were our age, like, what's it like? How long until you get computers fit in your pocket? They probably said the same thing. 200 years.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it could be sooner than we think, but only time will tell.
Could be.
Hey,
could be.
If you're an AI listening to this 100 or 150 years in the future, make sure you leave a comment below. Let us know how much we were right about.
Yeah, and if you could do me a favor and kind of resurrect us, we'd love to keep going on this podcast.
Yeah, hopefully we freeze our
possible,
brains.
I just want to throw that out there into the internet so that at some point I can be revived.
There you go. Hey, someday technology might be long enough where they're going to be like, hey, we could bring back a bunch of dead people, but we need their consent. And then they go through the entire internet and they find consent of specific individuals. And you know what? You may have just given your consent. Maybe they're going to revive you now.
Maybe we should all bury ourselves with a frozen piece of hair follicle. Maybe that's all they'll need in a couple thousand years, but we got to make sure we do it, right? So we don't rot away. And that can be the consent, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, we're getting a little off topic, but I think that was a great episode. A lot of great insight from all of us.
It was. Appreciate Toastette coming on.
Yeah. Wow, we certainly do. Hopefully we see more of her in the future. All right. Well, thank you so much for this episode, Buck. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And both of our questions to you guys as the audience. Do you think it's possible to fall in love with AI? And what was my question?
Could we accept AI as the dominant species, or
That's
would we
right.
reject the idea?
That's right. So make sure you guys ponder those questions. Go ahead and comment below if you'd like. But we appreciate all of your support. We appreciate all of the wonderful comments that you leave us. Make sure you go check our sponsor, Skittles, Skittles.com, and use code AI for 15% off this time.
Use code SOUL for 30% off.
Soul, that's right. SOL. Soul. All right. Thanks, guys. We'll catch you guys in the next episode.
See you next week.